Hey everyone, Ryan here at etrailer. Today on our 2024 Ford Escape Hybrid, we're going to be showing you how to install the Roadmaster towed vehicle battery charge line kit. Before we do that though, let's just take a minute and talk about why it's a good idea to use something like this. With the Escape, a charge line is something that is highly recommended, and to be honest with you, just about any flat tow I set up, a charge line is something that I suggest using because honestly, it's almost cheap insurance. So what this is going to do to begin with is keep your Escape's battery trickle charged or topped off more or less whenever you're flat towing it down the road. And that's going to be good for a few different things. One of them being that with the Escape, it uses electric assisted brakes among other electric assisted components, and whenever you're flat towing your vehicle down the road, you're going to want full battery power. That way those assisted components like your brakes will have the proper voltage and work like they should, because what can happen every time your supplemental braking system turns on, anytime the pedal's getting pulled down, it's going to draw battery power, right? So not to mention that too, you want your supplemental braking system to have proper voltage to do its job as well. And you know, if you end up getting to where you're going and your battery gets drained, trying to jump start the car, kind of have to deal with that headache. So a small component like a charge line kit is going to combat all them issues and make it so you're not going to have to worry about doing that. This Roadmaster kit does use what's called a circuit breaker. So you'll have your power coming from your motorhome that'll go into it, across the breaker, and from there to the power post that goes to your vehicle's battery. And the whole point of that breaker, if a short or anything like that were to occur, that breaker would trip, keeping the system protected and not burn anything up. There are a couple of things that you're going to need to make this whole kit work like it should. One of them is a 6-way round type connector on the front of your towed vehicle, like this one here. Chances are pretty good this is what you got already, because these are extremely common, but just wanted to mention that. And that's because the charge line actually hooks to the back of this, right? And that power from the motorhome flows through this cable, which kind of brings me to my next point. You want to make sure that on your coach, you're going to have a 7-way round type connector like this one here. And you're going to want to make sure that it has that 12-volt auxiliary power. So with these 7 ways, you know, you'll have your lights and things like that. And then one of the pins will have 12-volt power. And it's to be used for something just like this scenario, charging a battery, things of that nature. The vast majority of the late model motorhomes are going to have this and have that 12-volt system already active and everything. If you're unsure, you know, you can always get a tester that we carry here. They're fairly inexpensive and not a bad tool to have anyway when you're over the road. If you come to find out that your 7-way does not have that active 12-volt power, not a huge deal. Roadmaster carries a kit specifically for the motorhome side, so you could always pick up that and allow you to get that 12-volt back here. Just to compare to another charge line, here I have one that's made by Demco, and on the Escape, you know, they're both going to work just fine. Really not a ton of differences. I will say with the Demco one, I kind of like that it uses a regular fuse over a circuit breaker a little bit better. These are just kind of easier to source. Most people have something like this laying around if you do have an issue with it. And it does have a diode built into it as well. So the electricity can only flow into the battery and not the other way. And that'll seems to kind of help with corrosion issues and stuff at your connector plug over time. But either way, you know, both of these are going to do a great job of keeping the battery topped off and charged, making sure that all your systems are going to be able to operate properly. So really a no-brainer to use something like the Roadmaster or this Demco one for that matter. As far as the installation goes, pretty straightforward. You know, you secure the breaker, you run your wire from the connector up here, connect it from there to the post, and that's really all there is to it. So you shouldn't really have too many issues. With that said, this is something you don't want to mess with, or maybe you're looking to have other flat towing parts installed at the same time, you can always use our dealer locator network, and that can help you find a shop near you that can do something like this for you. But if you're going to set it up, hang around, we'll go ahead and get started on it now. To begin our installation for our battery charge line kit, we're going to be working underneath the hood, and we're going to take our wire and drop it down to the front of our vehicle. And what I suggest doing too, you know, if you're installing other parts at the same time, think things through. If you have any other wires to route in that same area, do it at the same time. For example, our diode wiring. So that's why this is here, but I just dropped it straight down, and it comes down through here. We do have our fascia removed because we're doing it at the same time as our base plate, which is what I recommend, but it can be done with everything put back together. It's a little harder to see. I just have it coming along. It's all loose right now. We'll secure it up later. Over here to this area. And what I think I might do, just with this particular base plate and everything, I won't have to trim the fascia as much by putting it on first and putting the wires through, as opposed to hooking up our connector plug and then having to trim a big opening out in our fascia to get everything connected. So we'll go ahead, kind of sit tight and get the fascia back on and go from there. So I got our fascia back on, kind of see what I was talking about there, how our wiring passes through it, and you know, our brackets mounted there. For our charge line, what you're going to want to do is strip the end of the insulation back a little bit, just like that, and twist the wire. And also take this rubber boot and slide it over the wiring. So if we look at our connector plug for our charge line, we're going to be using that center post there, or center terminal. And you just back these set screws out almost all the way. Take the wire, hold it in position here, and just snug this down. That's what the connector plug is going to look like once all of the wiring is hooked up to the back of it. And something that I like to do at the very end, once I know everything's working, I'll come back with some silicone and I'll pile it up on the terminals to prevent corrosion. But I like to wait, because if you have to get back in here, don't want to deal with a huge mess. So I'll put the boot back over, and for now we can mount this up to our bracket. With everything wrapped up in the front now, we can move back into the engine compartment, and you know, over where we started to route our wiring on our driver's side, what I've done is mounted up our circuit breaker. So I just attached it here. They give you a couple self-tapping screws, secure it down, really nothing to it. And then these nuts on the post, go ahead and remove those. And the wire that's coming from our 6-way connector, that's going to get hooked up to this brass colored post. So I'll kind of measure it out roughly, put a bend in it, and we'll cut it to length. This is how we're going to make all of our electrical connections. I'll strip the end back and twist the wire. Then you'll want to grab one of these small ring terminals, slide that over the bare end of the wire, crimp it down, and this is going to go over that post there. Go ahead and take one of the nuts, and tighten it down with the 3/8 socket. You don't have to crank down on these by any means, just make sure they're snug. What you can do now, the leftover wiring that you have, go ahead, crimp on a big ring terminal on one end, another small one. The small one will go over our silver post there on the breaker. We'll get this tightened down. And then the large one is going to go over this post. There was a little red cover over the post. I just popped that off. And then some of this plastic I just trimmed out so we could get the wire in there better. That's going to go right over that. Then from my experience with these escapes, some of them will have a nut on there from the factory. Other times they won't. Ours did not. I just dug through all my extra hardware and found one that fit. So if yours doesn't have it, you will have to pick one up if you want to do it this way. And with that on, come back with my socket and tighten it down. I took that little red cover, just popped that back into position, and with all that wrapped up, that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Roadmaster towed vehicle battery charge line kit on our 2024 Ford Escape.